And now, my conversation with Katy Perry. So let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Was
it the chicken or the egg?
Was it the chicken or the egg? So I saw the Katherine Hudson interview.
Yes.
The interview with Katherine Hudson. And I also know that you grew up in the church.
I sure did. Both my parents are born again Christians, and my whole life mostly was about they were traveling ministers and they started churches all over the country. So I lived in various places from 3 to 10. I lived in Santa Barbara and then Stockton. I lived in Florida. I lived in Tulsa. I lived in all these places, but maybe like 7 of them, but in the USA.
And how did you being raised in such a religious community sort of shape the way you think about the world?
Well, first and foremost, I always like to preface with, I love my parents. And if I had a time machine to go back, I wouldn't, because the lessons that I've been able to learn from this have been so valuable. And I'm always on a hunt for information and knowledge and wisdom. And I've had to learn some lessons through making mistakes and through hard truths that I had to face. Yeah. And with my parents, I love them and they did the best job they could. But sometimes when you're raised in church or when you're raised with a set of rigid rules, you don't get to paint with a lot of colors. And you also are in this bubble of sorts. And for me, it was like, people only thought the same way my parents thought or my family thought, and that was it. I didn't have very much diversity. I was a lot of things were off limits to me.
What?
Like people, anyone in the LGBT community were off limits, and I think it was based on fear that it was contagious or what have you. Is how they believed, and so. Anyone that had like a differencing of opinion, or basically anyone that didn't live by the book, or not even the book, but just by these rules. And those rules kind of change in different religions. You know, some of the rules are bigger and smaller. You know, it just depends on what faith you belong to. And once again, like, I respect all faiths, and I believe in God, and for me that's something different. So my parents and I, we agree to disagree all the time, but we still hold space and love each other in it. But the fact of the matter is that, like, you know, I can give you an example. For example, I wasn't allowed to eat Lucky Charms, and that sounds crazy. Well, my mom thought that luck was derived from Lucifer. So she didn't want me eating anything that was like Lucifer. And then we called deviled eggs angel eggs.
Did you really?
Yeah. And you know that vacuum dirt devil?
Yeah.
It was all about angels. And I get it, because words are powerful.
Yeah.
I get it. So like, Mom, you were trying to do something right, because words are vibrations.
Lucky Charms, that is a
that's
new
going,
one.
That's
I've not heard that one before.
That's going
Lucky
a
Charms
long
is new.
way.
Yeah.
Okay. It's going a long way, but that can give you some context as to how I was raised. And I was like, I wasn't allowed to listen to Madonna. I wasn't allowed to listen even to Michael Jackson. I was actually I wasn't allowed any pop culture influence, and MTV. Oh, that was crossing the line. And the funny thing is that, like, of course, you know, back in the day when you could block certain cable channels with a code, my parents would do 1947. I was like, Mom, Dad, you guys were born in 1947. Of course, we're going to pick that code. And then when you go to church at night, we're going to change the channel, you know? So,
so what could you listen to? Or like, what did you listen to? What influenced you?
I listened to gospel.
Okay.
So I listened to gospel. I listened to a lot of Krista Lewis, who is like my number one. She was like my Madonna of music.
Okay.
Gospel, and like my first 2 songs that I sang in church were "Oh Happy Day" and "His Eye Is on the Sparrow." So anything that was spiritual.
Did you watch Sister Act?
That was my only. Okay, so Lauryn Hill and Sister, I felt like that was my only person I related to, right?
Okay.
When she came out and she did "Joyful, Joyful, Lord, we adore thee." I mean, I was in it. And like Sister Act, for some reason, I was only allowed to watch Preacher's Wife. Yeah, because my mom was the preacher's wife.
Okay.
And then Sister Act 2. And everybody goes, why not Sister Act 1? Because Lauryn Hill wasn't in Sister Act 1. And that was the star. And so those were my references growing up. And it was gospel and it was church. And then, you know, at 13 and 14, I remember my first CD I brought home was Incubus.
Hmm.
And I brought it home. I put it in my knapsack and I pulled it out and I was hiding it from my parents, right? And I put my sweater on top of it and I pulled it out and I pulled out the CD and it broke in two like the Ten Commandments.
Like the Ten
It
Commandments.
broke in two and I was just like, I'll never do that again. And then cut to this.
Right.
Worldwide pop star.
I love it. What have they, what was the moment though that allowed you to access more of the world? Like, how did that happen from you being
Travel.
social travel?
Travel. So I started going to Nashville when I was 13 and my mother came with me. And, you know, my parents have always supported me along the way the best they knew how.
Travel because of singing.
Travel because of singing.
Okay.
So that's the main, like, that's the reason why the eye is in the mouth on the record cover on Witness that is out now. And that's the reason why we're here doing this talk.
Got it.
Is because of the travel. And that became my education and that became my real education. And I'm such a sponge and so curious. And so I would visit everywhere in the world and I would take in all of this information and it all kind of, it all kind of like motivated my art in a lot of ways. And, you know, it's not just about my journey or my personal stories. It's about the things I hear people say. You know, again, I'm a sponge, so I'm very like influenced by outside things and sources. And it's been an amazing re-education. And it's something that I'm doing still to this day because I'm a constant chameleon. And the things that I thought, you know, even 4 months ago, maybe they aren't the things I think today.
Got it.
Or the things I thought 4 years ago, or the things I did, 10 years ago, or 9 years ago, or 5 years ago. I'd be like, well, if I did them today, maybe I wouldn't. But that's also the thing is like, I sometimes have to learn through making mistakes. And I think a lot of us do. But I live under a microscope. So everybody sees me making those mistakes in real time.
This is a microscope here.
There's a microscope here.
You don't talk about your siblings often.
No.
But I know that you have a sister.
I love
them. And I know that you have a brother.
Yes.
And I've met your sister before.
Yeah, she's fantastic. And my sister's my angel. My sister's name is Angela, and her angel is in Angela. So she's my angel. And my brother I love. He's like the guy that I can joke around with. And
your sister's older than you.
She's older. I'm the middle child.
And your brother's
so I was always fighting for attention.
Okay.
Because I was not the eldest and I was not the baby. Okay. I was like, give me attention.
Give me attention.
And I'm a Scorpio. So the combination is lethal.
Now, I want to transition to talk about race. So before we get there, though, let's talk about activism. So one of the last times I saw you, I saw you a couple times, but I saw you at the Javits Center because you were a big Hillary person.
Yes.
Now, what I would say, and totally push me on this, is that it seems like over the years you've started to think about your role as an entertainer, as somebody who wants to use her platform for something bigger than yourself. And it seems like that was a spirit of the Hillary. Can you talk about how did you get to be so far out there for Hillary? What was the impetus for that? What's your reflection on that? Your whole period as somebody who was so outspoken for her?
Yeah, I mean, it was a real growth spurt for me because, listen, I've always had a voice because I can sing, but I almost created this character out of protection because I wasn't really happy with being my birth name, Katherine Hudson. I didn't think it was enough. I didn't think it was sparkly. I didn't think it was great. So I created Katy Perry. And I'm still Katy Perry, right? But I'm not just one thing. And I've had to come to terms with the fact that, like, even though it seems like I had so much to sing about and say, and I was writing these songs like Roar and Firework really for myself to like pep myself up, that like there was still something missing. And again, it's not a destination, it's a journey, but there was something missing inside of me to really know that I had a real voice that mattered, that was enough. And I think it started really being activated when I got to stand alongside of Hillary, who I find is a very strong woman, a courageous woman, a brave woman, a beautiful woman. And she, would continue to ask me again and again. She would say, come stand by my side and sing and use your voice. And in a way I felt, empowered. She gave me that power that I was looking for. I was looking for it because like I'd given away in relationships. I never had it in the first place.
Yeah.
And she empowered me, right? And she said, no, you do matter. No, you are enough. And like your perspective is something, to talk about. And so I really found my inner voice because of that. And I told her that, and I was so grateful for her for that. And like, don't know all the information, don't know all the answers, don't agree with everything she says, don't agree with everything he says, agree with, some things all across the board. But what I did is I started educating myself in activism and putting my words to action. And like, people are scared to be activists because they don't know all the answers.
And what were some of the things that you did to educate yourself? Like, what does that look like for you?
Well, for me, it's several different things. It's reading, and it's good conversation with people that are smarter than you, and more well-read than you. Sometimes it's documentaries like 13th. Sometimes it's like Leonardo DiCaprio's documentary was amazing about climate
Yep.
change. And I'm a visual learner, so I learn through visuals.
Yep.
And I also learn through audio. So audiobooks, different meditations. That's how I'm learning. And I'm also learning by listening.
Yep.
Just being a listener. So I just wanted to say that about the
Hillary.
the Hillary thing is
Yep.
that, like, I think one thing that was so wonderful about the experience is that, like, I think I realized that it's something bigger than her. It's something bigger than me. It's about all of us together. And it's not about just one person. And you say something that really really changes the way I think. It's not about the king, it's about the kingdom.
Yeah, that was Chance the Rapper.
Oh, but I'm sorry, that's
I've
also
tweeted it.
You tweeted
yes,
it. That's
yes.
what I saw.
Chance the Rapper.
Sorry.
Yeah. Don't believe in the king, believe in the kingdom.
Okay.
Chance the Rapper. Chance the Rapper.
Big fan of Chance the Rapper, and we all know that. But I saw you tweet it, and that's also the internet, right?
Yeah.
There's a great example of the internet. Is like always figure out where those sources are from. But I think that the intention is still the same. Is that it's not about one person.
Yeah.
It's about all of us together, and all of us realizing we have the power. We've always had it.
Now, about race, you have gotten, I don't know if you've seen it, but you've gotten pushback about these critiques about you appropriating culture, whether it is Black culture, whether it is Asian culture.
Yes.
And when we think about the difference between appreciation and appropriation, we think about appreciation as acknowledging the roots of something, right? So like if you are engaging in culture, acknowledging the source of it, and we think about appropriation as sort of wholesale taking without acknowledging sort of the roots or where it came from.
And that's a great
What's your response to the critiques that you've gotten sort of generally before we go into some specifics?
Well, I wanted to say that's something I just learned, the difference between appropriating and appreciating is like what it means to actually appreciate versus appropriate. And I think, in my intention to admire a culture and appreciate, I actually appropriated. I actually made a mistake because I didn't educate myself, because I didn't have the information, or I didn't have the time. I didn't make the time. And, with my life moving so fastly, like it's like I'm juggling 7,000 balls, but I made mistakes, and I have made mistakes. And like, I've made several mistakes, even in like the This Is How We Do video about how I wore my hair, and having a hard conversation with one of my empowered angels, Cleo, about what does it mean? Why can't I wear my hair that way? Or what is the history behind wearing the hair that way? And she told me about the power in Black women's hair and how beautiful it is and the struggle. And I listened and I heard and I didn't know. And I won't ever understand some of those things because of who I am. I will never understand, but I can educate myself, and that's what I'm trying to do along the way. And even in, my intention to like appreciate Japanese culture, I did it wrong with a performance, and I didn't know that I did it wrong until I heard people saying I did it wrong. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's what it takes. It takes someone to say, out of compassion, out of love, hey, this is where the origin is, and do you understand? And not just like a clap back, because it's hard to hear those clap backs sometimes, and your ego just wants to turn from them. And I've been so grateful to have great teachers and great friends that will really hold me accountable, even when I said that I wasn't a feminist because I didn't know what that word meant. Mm-hmm. Someone pulled me aside in a quiet space and didn't shame me, didn't judge me, my friend Shannon, she just says, "Sweetheart, I love you, and I just want to show you what the Webster's definition in the dictionary says about what it is to be a feminist, and it's just equality." And so, like,
So are you a feminist?
yes, sir, I
Okay.
am. I am a feminist, and I think it's a beautiful thing to want equality for all females, for all women. And I know, in addition, that there are gentlemen out there that can hold space for strong women and that can lift them up and that can empower them. And they see the beauty and equality in women as well. I don't think it's men versus women. I think it's just all of us recognizing our power.
And what about that Snapchat video?
Which
Remember
one?
the Snapchat where it was like the Obama?
Oh, the Instagram live.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know.
Instagram Live. Sorry, not Snapchat.
Yes. Well,
What happened?
it was okay. So here's what happened is
Okay.
that in my attempt to make a joke, I made a mistake. I said it wrong, and something really triggered me. And you know, when you get triggered, sometimes you react, and it's all about that reaction. You know, someone was coming for my hair again. I was like, I had had it with people saying I'm not pretty enough, you know, if I don't have my black hair. And I snapped and I said something wrong and I made a mistake. And, you know, it may be misinformed and it may have been from my conditioning. It may have been something I wasn't aware of because it was so subconscious that I just said it. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, I made another mistake very publicly.
And do you understand? And I've not heard you talk about that before. So I want to push about. Do you understand why people reacted that way, given your role as a white woman with incredible amounts of privilege?
Yes, first and foremost, like, I have lots of white privilege. I'm coming to terms with that. And um, I know that, like, I'll never understand certain things because I am white and because I live this life, even though I've worked really hard for it. I'm not discrediting hard work and, like, you know, fruits of your labor. You work hard for something, sow seeds, grow it, nurture it, it's going to grow. So I'm not dismissing anything that I've made creative for myself. But I understand that I was born as a white woman with privilege. And I will never understand the inequalities and the social justices of people of color, minorities, struggles. I'll never understand it. And all I can do is take my light and try and shine a light on those injustices, on those things that are not fair, that are not real, that are not met with empathy and acceptance and tolerance. And that's what I can do. And it's a hard thing for me to do, right? Sometimes it's hard for me because, like, you know, like, I don't always operate I want to be a Buddha, but I'm not a Buddha. My ego gets in the way. My judgment gets in the way. But my intention has always been pure. And, you know, I do make mistakes under this crazy microscope, but I think that my willingness to try still is really important because I think a lot of people are scared to try because they don't know how to ingest all the information, or they're just like me, like, they will never understand certain things because they are born with this privilege. So they're scared. They don't know how to do it. But all they have to do is educate themselves.
Yep.
Maybe have healthy discourse, maybe have hard conversation. What would you suggest?
Yeah, so I'd push and say I don't think that it's that you can't understand, right? Because some of this is about understanding institutional racism and that the
Sure.
system was like designed to disadvantage a whole set of people.
100%.
And you can learn that, and you have.
And I'm learning that
right?
through many different things. I'm
Yes.
saying, whoa, the cards are not right here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is crazy.
It's like voter ID, mass incarceration.
crazy.
You talked about the 13th.
Mass incarceration.
Yeah.
That
so you
is-
can understand those things.
I mean, you watch his 13th once.
Right.
Okay.
So that's huge. And when you think about using your platform, like you said, to shine
Yes.
a light, I think that you can do those things. So I think
Yeah.
that is important. And understanding too, teasing out this work hard notion, right? Is that there's some of it, and I think you talked about this as a white person in this country, like you didn't work hard for every Band-Aid to look like you, right? And you didn't work hard for every baby doll to look like you. Like those things happen because white has become what normal is in this world, right? And that is the privilege of whiteness. So that is what we're trying to like dismantle. But I think you're right about like, I think you can
We need
learn
to
a
we
ton,
need
you
to
know?
bring we need to bring everybody into the conversation. It's not just people that are white need to be there. Like in everything I do now,
Yep.
everything I do, I want it has to be absolutely equally diverse. So for instance, I have some shoes and I have a shoe line like you see right
I know, I
here.
saw. I was like,
I have a shoe
I don't
line,
wear that kind of shoes.
right?
So I saw them.
And
I
the
was like,
very
whoa.
in one of the campaigns, in the very first one, they had some uh, uh, leg models, and they didn't have all colors represented. And I was like, what's up with this? Like they didn't think about it.
Like races, you mean?
All all
Of
races,
of
yeah,
the
all
leg
races, all
models. Yep.
colors. And it's not that they I don't know if they didn't think about it or what have you, because it wasn't the norm. It wasn't the norm. And so I said, no, we're not starting until we have everybody represented as best as we can, as best as we can. And like that was like just an easy way for me to transition in taking my power and making it an action with my spotlight that I have.
There we go. Hey, you're listening to Pod Save the People. Don't go anywhere. There's more to come. Pod Save the People is brought to you by Squarespace. Make your next move, make your next website, make your next move with a beautiful website from Squarespace. Squarespace's award-winning templates are the most beautiful way to present your ideas online. Create a beautiful website with Squarespace's all-in-one platform. There's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade, ever. Squarespace provides award-winning 24/7 customer support and a unique domain experience that's fully transparent and simple to set up. I use Squarespace all the time for every website I've set up in the past 3 years. Squarespace is used by a wide range of creatives, people, and businesses, musicians, designers, artists, restaurants, and more. Use offer code PEOPLE for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. That's offer code PEOPLE for 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain with Squarespace. Now, one of the last things I want to say about race is that you tweeted a defense of Leslie Jones.
Yes.
Not too long ago. I mean, I think it was like in the past year.
Yeah.
Where you mentioned misogynoir, which is the intersection of misogyny and
I learned
blackness,
that from reading.
specifically towards Black women. That was coined by Moya Bailey, I believe.
Yes.
How did you? I remember when you tweeted it because Twitter was sort of like, look at Katy Perry talking about misogynoir.
She's like, how'd she do that?
And people were like,
she's an oxymoron.
well, people were just. I think it was, in the activist community, people have been talking about misogynoir and in the specific injustices that Black women face for a long time. But you said it in that day, and I've always wanted to ask you, sort of, like, what led you? How did you stumble upon it? Like,
well, I read an article. I forget where I read the article. I read lots of different articles across the board and different publications and news sources. I'm always kind of trying to just get the tone of everything.
Okay.
And then I do the kind of digestion is like, oh, is this the yellow light, the red light, or the green light?
Okay.
And I read that, and I'd seen all that stuff happening to Leslie with, pictures and the horrible, like, injustice and threats and verbal abuse and, like, the online abuse. And I was just like, this is horrible. This is horrible for her, for women, for Black women. And, like, I have a platform on Twitter. I can retweet things. So it's like, stop this abuse. And I got to meet her, and I didn't even really know her, but, like, I've like sent pictures before because I've been in long distance relationships. You know what I'm saying? And I love my lovers, and I love them really good, and I want to treat them sometimes. Okay. Sorry. I don't know if that makes anybody a little nervous, but it's like, that is not a crime, and that is not a problem. And what happened to her was a crime, and it was a problem, and it was an injustice, and it was based on race. And I saw that so clearly just by, like, some of the things that I've been learning along the way. And I had never really I had met her, but I didn't really know her. And, like, now that I met her and saw her on SNL, and I saw her, and she's such a beautiful person. And, like, again, like, I will never understand certain things, but I know what it feels like to be bullied as a woman. Okay. And I don't know how it feels like to be bullied as a Black woman, but even as a white woman in my small little way, it still sucks. It hurts. And it was magnified a million times for her on that particular day and that particular week. And I felt just one tiny sand inch of what she probably felt.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I can just be there for you. I can stand in solidarity. I can stand in support for you with my powers. And this is Twitter, and this is my influence, or whatever it is, the weird thing that I have. And that's what I did.
And what are you, given your reflections, is sort of in acknowledging the growth that you have made and the growth that you need to continue to make.
Continue
right?
every single day.
What have you done? What have you put in place, either in your own personal life, in your professional life, like to make sure that you are getting feedback before the problems become problems?
Sure.
Like, what does that look like?
Well, I'm gonna fail. Let's just get it real. Let's be real. I'm gonna fail because of where I come from, because of my privilege, because of my conditioning.
What can you do to
Right?
mitigate failure?
I just want to say that, but
Okay.
I don't want to promise the world.
Yeah, I'm not saying promise.
I'm not going to promise the world that I'm not, right?
Yes, okay.
But I want to try.
Okay.
And I want to try and re-educate myself. I want to surround myself with diverse people that are smarter than me, that can speak on their personal struggles. I want to hold space and empathize. I want to learn origins. I want to learn information, history, context. I want to, I just want to do the right thing, and I want to be a good example, so that other people can see that and want to be a good example as well. So I just have to continue to educate myself. And education is key with everything.
And where do you go for inspiration? Like, where do you go to get filled back up when you have tough days, or what music or art inspires you? Like, where do you go to get
I go
filled
to the
back up?
museums.
Really?
Yeah, I go to the museums all around the world. I love art. I love sculptures and structures and paintings and modern art. And I love it because it's up to interpretation. And I don't really, I think like people are like, don't tell me what I should think. I want to discover it on my own. I want to learn the truth on my own. And like, that's why a lot of my songs are suggestive. It's like, I'm not trying to tell anyone what to think, but like, it's okay to pose the question.
Yep. Do you still listen to gospel music?
Oh yeah. For instance, right before I was doing the Super Bowl, I didn't watch the game. I didn't watch anything. I couldn't like get into the game. I wanted to. I really, really wanted to.
Why couldn't you get into the game?
Because it was a little bit too distracting, because knowing that time, that pressure was building.
Okay, yeah.
And I was like rooting for my friend Russell Wilson. And the whole time I had no idea what was going on. Okay. And I was listening to gospel music because...
Who do you listen to? Who do you still listen to?
I mean, like Winans.
Okay.
And like T.D. Jakes or Kirk Franklin.
Kirk Franklin has some hits.
And those people are anointed. And those people, I can feel the Spirit, and I can feel God, and I can feel something bigger than me. This beautiful thing, this thing that I do not know, that I can't put my finger on. I can feel it through this music. And it was also something that made me feel like a child. And I really wanted to acknowledge that child. I really wanted to acknowledge that.
Okay. You got it?
I really wanted to acknowledge that little girl, like Catherine Hudson, was enough.
And gospel takes you there?
And gospel takes me there. It was enough. It brings me back to being a little kid, being in church, not having to monetize anything, not having to make these professional decisions. And it brought me back to like the spirit and the soul of it all. And so it brought me back to facing Catherine Hudson and going, you are enough.
And
you deserve it.
That's what got you through the Super Bowl?
And that's what got me through the Super Bowl. But sometimes I'm crying about it because it, sometimes it hurts that I didn't acknowledge that for so long.
How did you start to acknowledge it? Like, what was...
Many different lessons, hard lessons, relationships, therapy, meditation.
Yoga. I saw you had yoga.
Acknowledge, like, not running from myself. Mm-hmm. When you stop running from yourself and you have to face yourself, sometimes it's scary as F. It's it's so scary. You finally have to look at yourself, and that person is like a broken person. And that person is, not been developed. And that person is still like a little kid searching for answers. And so I've just been showing up for Catherine Hudson, and she's turning into a teenager, and she's pretty cool.
I love it. Is that some of the impetus behind Witness?
Yeah, wanting to be seen as who I am, I guess, and heard, and knowing that like I'm not the only one that wants to be seen and heard. Like I feel like everybody wants to be seen and heard, and not seen and heard on their Instagram, and not seen and heard, on whatever facade that they're painting or hiding behind. They wanted to be seen as just like this, like, I'm a dork. I'm a full-on dork. You know what I'm saying? And like, let me be a dork.
Is there a piece of advice that you've gotten over the years that stuck with you? Like something that you go back to?
There's a couple of things. It's hard for me to pinpoint one of them, but
Couple's fine.
I think, one of them is just slow to speak and open to listening. Look, I thought I knew a lot, right? I actually thought I knew a lot even during the Hillary campaign. And then I realized I don't know a lot. And I need to re-educate myself. And I need to learn. And I need to listen. I'm grateful for my parents that they're in they believe differently than I do, because I can listen, I can learn. I can learn something.
How do you talk to them about this current? You said, I thought you publicly said that they voted for Trump.
Yeah, I did.
What do you make of that, given that Trump has not been an ally to so many of the issues that you believe in, that
Absolutely.
I believe in?
Well, I think sometimes people vote compartmentally. So it's not a great way, I don't think I suggest voting, but they do it. They vote based on rules that they are accustomed to, or, beliefs and things like that. And so it's really hard when you vote compartmentalized. Because I don't agree with some of the things that my parents believe in, but that's okay. It doesn't mean I stop loving them. It doesn't mean that I can't agree to disagree. And that's the thing that's, I think, really hard, is that a lot of families are torn apart right now because, like, people will not talk to their parents who think something different or voted in a different way.
Have you been able to push them a little bit? Like, is that...
They've pushed me. I've pushed them. I've seen both sides of the street now. And I realized I needed to get off my high horse, that I thought I knew everything. I need to listen. I need to learn. And I need to hold space. And, all I can do is do that for me, for them. I can't control what they're going to do. But my hope is that at their core, they're amazing people. And I know that they would also listen, that they would also ask questions, and they would feel safe enough to ask those questions. Like, no one feels safe to ask questions. And it's tearing people apart. And it's tearing families. People will not have dinner with their families. And it's hard because it gets emotional. You want to yell. And it's just like, how can you believe in this way? Don't you know information, education? And they don't know. There is no manuscript. And we have to create a safe place for people to learn, to have compassion when they fall, to say, look, this is some information behind that. Just as many people have done for me. Is like, they haven't said F you, or you're this, or you're that, or you're a horrible person, or, you're not this, blah, blah. They said, look, this is like, even you telling me and being here today, having this conversation, this is making me sweat, right? And it's healthy discourse. And so it's not all a bed of roses. And I don't want to face some of these things sometimes, but I need to face some of these things sometimes because they aren't right.
And what does it mean to listen to people, though? It seems like we agree that like things like the Muslim ban are just like wrong, right? Like building a wall seems like not to be a sound policy solution.
I believe in immigration reform.
Yep. So what does that mean?
I don't know exactly. I don't know what it looks like. I don't have all the books and the textbooks on what it is, but immigration reform is something I believe in. And I also believe in the power of words. So you can't just say, you can't generalize.
So like you
can't generalize. You can't say all people are bad, because there's bad people in everything. Yeah. There's bad Christians. There's bad Catholics. There's bad atheists. There's bad pop stars. There's bad, all of it. But there's good. in all of it as well.
Yeah.
There's good in all of it.
And the reason I was
And
bringing
you
up
can't generalize.
the wall
That's really
and
destructive.
the Muslim ban, and I think what I've heard you say before publicly, so push me if I'm misremembering, about immigration reform is like continue to make America a place where immigrants feel welcome, right? Like that is
Well, America is formed by immigrants. I mean, if we want to get real, we should have a conversation with the Native Americans.
correct. Because
Let's get real.
yes. And so I say that because, like, what does it mean to listen to people who, like, just believe in things that are just so destructive to other people's lives, right? Like, what does that look like?
What does that look like?
Like, talk to me. I get
Okay.
listening, like, theoretically, right? I'm like, that makes sense to me.
I
And then
guess-
you talk to people who are like,
if you boil it down, right? If you boil down the belief, I think you have to simplify the belief. Is it kind? Is it love thy neighbor as thyself? Is it kind? Is the intention right, pure? Is it? Is that what it is? Or is it kind of muddy? And what is that mud? And like face that mud. But at the end of the day, is it love thy neighbor as thyself? I mean, some of those scriptures are legit. They are legit. You know what I'm saying? But like
I like that quote. Katy Perry, some of those scriptures are legit.
Yeah, but
You're
some
right.
of them.
Some of the messages in the Bible are strong.
Absolutely. But some of them have been sent through all kinds of filters and they've been played a game of telephone. And one person has distorted it and one person has perverted it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And talking about religion is you get a lot of pushback from like the religious right. I've seen online because they feel like you
They think
grew up
I'm
in
the
the
prodigal
church.
son.
You grew up in the church, and
I'm
then
the
all of
prodigal
a
son.
sudden you like.
Well, they don't know me, and they don't know that I have my own personal relationship with God, and maybe it's not exactly what people think, but people have to think what they think, and I have to think, and I'm allowed to think what I think, and I respect them. And I hope for respect as well, but I can't control it. And I think that like it's my journey. It's my journey. Like I tell my parents, thank you so much for praying for me, because those prayers are strong. That is energy, that is verbiage that's rippling and it's hitting me. And those prayers are strong and I'm feeling them. And I believe in angels and I believe in God. And you gotta live your journey. I gotta live my journey. And I'm gonna make mistakes and I'm going to triumph. I'm going to do all those things. And God bless you on yours. And I hope you can do the same for me.
There we go. Where do you go to, couple last questions. Where do you go to take care of yourself? Like what self-care look like for you?
Self-care.
You live a crazy life.
Yeah.
A lot of people looking at you like right now.
Hi guys.
Like where do you go to get filled back up? Like when you are nearing empty?
Yeah, my sister. She is my angel. And I go to a quiet place. I try to go to the countryside wherever I'm at. Somewhere that's not buzzing with noise and energy. And, you know, even if I can't escape physically, I go to a meditation. So I've been giving these examples of meditation, which are so various, and some of them are mantra-based, and some are just mindful, and some you don't need to learn anything. And it's just a way that I can meditate 20 minutes a day, or even for 5 minutes, to come back to present. Because really, all of my anxiety is about the future, or my guilt from the past, or shame, or judgment. That's where all the anxiety is from. You know, I hope that, like, I have a great future. And that's anxiety in a way sometimes, because it can like eat you alive. So I just need to come back to right here, because this is the only moment that I have ever had.
Cool. Last question.
Yes,
because
sir.
We're nearing time.
Well, there are a couple questions I'd like to ask you.
Oh,
DeRay.
okay.
So how can I, because I love bringing worlds together.
Okay.
And I don't want to live in a segregated world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to live in a separate world. Like you stay here. And I want to be educated, of course, about all those things. But especially like in music, and I've been doing it forever. Like I've been able to collaborate with people like Kanye West and Juicy J and Missy Elliott and Lenny Kravitz and now Migos and Nicki Minaj and all of those people and Skip Marley. How can I collaborate with those people and lift them up and bring my spotlight and share it and give them that spotlight? How can I do that in a way that's amazing and respectful and good?
Yeah, so we think about allyship as an invitation, not a self-appointment, right? So you become an ally when somebody invites you into that space and talks to you about how you can use your privilege to support their work. Allyship is not you saying like, I'm going to do this and then you doing it sort of on behalf of people without them being present for that discussion, right?
Sure.
So I think about what you can continue to do or what you could start doing in some places is use your privilege to make sure that marginalized communities are taken care of and are represented, right? Which is the shoe example. To partner with people and be really explicit about like, I want to help you grow, right? I know that you have a huge platform, right? And you can say to people, I know I have a big platform. I want to figure out how to share some of this light. So like, let's talk about how to share that.
Absolutely.
And then putting into practice the difference between appreciation and appropriation, right?
Tell us what the definition, the difference is, because I want to hear that one more time. And I want everyone to take this in, the definition between appreciation and appropriation.
Yep. So appreciation is saying, I'm participating in this culture and I'm acknowledging my participation and I'm acknowledging the weight of that. So the systemic wrongdoings, like the problem with headdresses, right, is that like it's hard to appreciate a headdress because they are cultural pieces of clothing that are worn for specific things, right? They're not like decorative.
Right.
So when people wear them, like just walking down the street as a part of a party, right? That's not actually appreciating the culture. You're like mocking it in some ways, right?
Right. You're using it as just like flippant something.
Yeah.
You're not acknowledging the power.
Correct.
That it has.
And the trauma, right? That it might have been, you're not acknowledging any of that. That is the appropriation bucket. So appropriation is participating in culture and not acknowledging the roots, not acknowledging ownership, not acknowledging origin, not acknowledging struggle, right? So appreciation is you walking in your privilege and saying that like, I am not a part of this culture, right? So I need to do my work to make sure that I am being respectful in this moment.
Absolutely.
And knowing that is actually a huge part into like changing your behavior, right?
Absolutely.
And then having people around you who can check you. So like when you're like, I think I want to do this. And then it's like, yeah, somebody's like, okay, Katy, that like.
What's that called? That's my social.
I don't know. Is this, am I supposed to know this? Is this like, is this?
No, it's something I forgot what it was called. Okay. It was like my squad that helps me, like lifts me up and is also not afraid to check me and push me and give me information when I'm wrong. Like just surround yourself with people like that have more information than you do. Yeah. It's amazing.
And put yourself in places too where people can hear you like reflect and process, right?
What does that mean?
You live in a space where people don't always have proximity to the way you think, right? Because you live on like a
I get to go the whole world.
So trying to think about, you have a unique opportunity to help people process the world because you just have such a big platform. I think about you using the word misogynoir, right? For so many people who aren't activists or who are not steeped in the work of Moya or other queer activists, Black female activists, like they had never heard that word. And you using your platform help people enter into a conversation differently. Yeah. And like you can continue to do that. I think that some people's frustration was your quietness around the appropriation conversation. Like they didn't hear you talk about it much.
Well,
but
I
you have.
wasn't strong enough to do it. And also sometimes the media just burns you at the stake and takes all of your words out of context. And like, how can you take any of these words out of context right now? How can you do that? And like, I just actually had an interview before this where I can tell that there was an agenda and there was just like a trap here, a trap there, a trap here, a trap. And they weren't big traps and people were just doing their job. They've got people that they're, that they have to call editors and bosses and things. They don't want to lose their job. They have their families. But it was like a dance where there was just a trap and a trap and a trap. And I was like, no, I'm not going to fall into that trap. But sometimes it gets so big that it's just like orbiting. And then, I got scared that this something that I built up, that I worked so hard for was just going to be taken down by something that I didn't have the information by. And I made a mistake and I didn't know how to face it because I wasn't strong enough. And I was really scared. I was really scared to try. And I'm not scared to try. And I know a lot of people are scared to try and hopefully they can find the courage to try and to have the conversations.
I am interested to see what your world looks like sort of post this, right? Like how you put into practice this awareness that you have, because it is easy for people to reflect, right? And to say, to own like, okay, this didn't work, and to acknowledge that like, I'm not gonna be perfect, right? Like I'm not gonna know everything, and I am imperfect, but not using that as an excuse to misbehave, right? But using it as like as an honest statement that
the
like
whole
pushes
world's keeping me accountable.
Yes, the whole world is keeping
The
me
whole
accountable.
world is keeping me accountable, and I hope that we can keep each other accountable through compassion, with compassion, with compassion.
Yeah, and knowing that like some people's rage and frustration comes from being a part of a marginalized group that always has to like be compassionate, right? Like people beat down on us, and then we always 100%. Do you know what I mean?
I get that, and like I trigger things in people, and I don't want to, but I do, and that's not just because of me. It's because of the system. It's because of tons and tons of time and tons of cards being stacked against.
Yeah, and we think about white privilege as a set of sort of actions and decisions that make the fact that you're white mean so much more in this context than anything else, right? So trying to think about how can you use that privilege to disrupt that privilege is like part of the core work, right? Like what does that look like? We're going to flip it.
We're going to flip it.
So I'm excited to see you put that into practice. I actually met one of your background singers, backup singers.
Elle or Cherry?
Backup singers, background.
Yes, my women that support me with voices.
Yes, okay. LB.
Elle, she's amazing.
She's been with you for 7 years.
She has, she has, and she's been amazing this whole time, and she's been a fantastic person, a fantastic coworker, and she's always supported me, and I love her, and I learned so much from her as well. And I think we see each other in a new light as well. A light that I didn't know how to see. And I'm so glad that she's there, and she's had, she's been an amazing example.
Yeah, I met her outside, and I was like, what do you do here? She was like, I'm one of the backup singers.
She's a powerful woman. She's a powerful Black woman, and she like walks in her power. And she's discovering her power too, and I support her with that. And Cherry and Tony and all the people that I have around me, whatever background they come from and race, I support them all. Well, thanks so much.
There we go. Done and done.
Appreciate you.
Hey, you're listening to Pod Save the People. Stay tuned. There's more to come.